Their aura is unequal.
Well, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Or whatever. And they make it a little more raspy, and I follow direction.
Their contents are legendary.
In fact, that little sheet you see is his concept drawing.
Their attitude is embraced. Tune in to one of the most up and rising kaiju-sized groups within our community. So go ahead and watch all of their creative content, including that of the Raw Attitude live interview, where they have special guests ranging from actors, directors, toy creators, artists, and many, many more. You can also find them on multiple of other social media platforms, ranging from Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. You could even sit back and watch your favorite classic monster movie and even watch us go through one of the most iconic games on Twitch. Featuring your hosts, Eric Stowe, Adrian Settle, Joe Myers, Samson West, Jordan Adorno. They are the Monsters with Attitude.
What up, everybody, and welcome to another exciting Raw Attitude interview brought to you by MWA Monsters with Attitudes. And of course, I am here with the king of Joe Mama Jokes, Mr. Joe Myers himself. What is going on? Thank you for joining me, because we have a very, very exciting guest tonight that I'm really anxious to talk to. But what's going on, buddy?
Oh, not much. Blessed by the best, as always. The G-Fest countdown is nearing its final days. I'm so excited to go. It's going to be a blast. I'm excited to see all of my friends here at MWA live and in person for the one time a year we get to all commingle. And I'm excited to meet our next guest in person, live and in living color, as some people would say. And get to know him and say hi. It's going to be exciting.
Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's so funny that, we've talked in the past, Joe, about meeting people and meeting these stars that we've grown up with loving, and we're really making it a point nowadays to really meet these people. And I'll be honest, like when I was younger, I didn't always make that a point when I went to G-Fest, and he's been to several G-Fests, and now I'm so happy that I get to rectify that mistake and actually go see him and talk to him. And I'm really, really excited. But without further ado, the man who portrayed Jim Morgan in the Showa kaiju film Gamera versus Virus, or Viras, if you will, Mr. Carl Craig. Carl, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. What is going on? And sorry for the technical difficulties.
Not a problem. Like I said, the electrical storm is like directly overhead now. So if I get lost, my generator will kick in about 15 seconds. So I should be back up online. But anyway.
Well, like I was telling you when we could talk, Carl, it would not be an MWA interview without our special guests like yourself. Something going haywire. Stephanie Dodali needed to reboot her entire computer system. I mean, it's just it's always something, but it wouldn't be the same without it. So we're happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with our first question, that we like to have all of our first time guests be on here. We kind of want to know kind of a bit of their background, but really, we want to know your likes and interests in maybe giant monsters, Godzilla, Gamera. Like, were you into that when you were growing up? Like, how did you get into it? Give us a little rundown of that.
Well, my mom was Japanese.
Okay.
My father was fighting in the Korean War and was wounded. He got his combat infantryman badge and his Purple Heart and was sent to Japan to convalesce. And he met my mother. And General MacArthur had the edict in place where there was no interracial marriages allowed. So my dad had to go stateside, and he came back in 1953, and then he married my mother and brought her back to the States. I was born in 56, and within 6 months, my dad got orders to Japan. So we came back to Japan. Wow. And then I was in Japan till I was about 6. Came back, had a tough time in, first grade because I was speaking Japanese more than I was speaking English. And I went to school for like 3 years. I went to the first, second, third grade, part of the fourth grade, and then we went back to Japan. Wow. And so the first, 13 years of my life, I spent about 10 or 11 in Japan. Wow. So like when my grandmother would send me $2 for my birthday, back in the 60s, I got the big, George Washingtons. And I was like, what are these? I had never seen those because we lived on script money in Japan. So yeah. Anyway, so I grew up in Japan. I could speak the lingo. And so all my round-eyed friends, were at a disadvantage because there was no TV there. There was no American TV. So you either got into it or you didn't. So all the TV shows that I grew up on, were like my favorites. I loved all the monster movies and, anything Magama Taishi, Ultraman, anything. I watched it because that was it. That was all you could do. Yeah. So it was kind of a fascinating process. But, Yuasa, my director, he told me many times that he had asked Daiei to have an American movie, and they basically flatly declined like the first 4. And finally, around the time they were getting ready to release the 4th one, they said, "Okay, you can have an American." And so they started searching for somebody that could speak Japanese and play the part of Jim Morton. And so this, this wasn't something that you could just get by on with a few phrases. It just so happened that my mother's older brother lived next door to a Daiei producer. And in a conversation one day, he said, we're having a hell of a time trying to find an American well enough to do this part. And my uncle said, well, you need to call my sister because she married an American serviceman, blonde, blue-eyed kid who speaks Japanese perfect. Yeah. So I came home from school one day and my dad said, hey, we're going to go audition for this movie. And first of all, what's an audition? I played baseball and everything, so he says, it's like a tryout. I was like, oh, what movie? And he said, Gamera. And I was like, ooh, yeah, Gamera movie, cool. So I went down and it wasn't really an interview. They just sat there talking with me. They asked me all kinds of questions, what I like to do, sports, whatever. And after about 30, 45 minutes of just talking and having a conversation with them, they reached up underneath the counter and put the contracts in front of my dad and I to sign. They said, you're perfect. You'll do. Wow. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. So that's how I got the part. All right. Now, flash forward all these years later, Linda Miller and I are really good friends. Linda lived right across the street from me on the base. We didn't know each other. She was about 8 years older than me. Yeah. And she'd finished high school and she was modeling for a Japanese modeling agency when she was discovered. So she was offered the, King Kong Escapes role a year before I was. So here we were, 2 Americans in Japan getting movie actor jobs thrown in our laps. We had no idea of anything like that, happening. And that's kind of how I got the job. And that's how Linda got the job. And then all these years later, Linda and I go to these conventions together. She lives in Richmond, about 2 hours away. So when we do the Northern Convention route, she'll drive up here and spend the night at my house. And then the next morning we'll pack up my car and we'll drive to Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, wherever we have to go for the convention. Yeah. And then I'd come home and then she gets in her car and goes back down to Richmond. But it was hilarious that we were both in Japan at the same time and we both got movie star roles just handed to us. Kind of weird, but yeah.
Small world. I love that. So, but before we dive too deep into how you got the roles and your career, talk to me about kind of growing up in Japan. You said that going there as a child was because of your dad's deployment and your mother's Japanese. Talk to us about being a kid in Japan. How is that, or how different is that to maybe here in the States?
Well, I think it was a very fortunate experience. I have a lot of friends that I'm friends with on Facebook that I grew up with in Japan. I mean, that's probably the oldest and longest running friendships that I have are kids that I grew up with in Japan. We've stayed connected after all these years.
Cool.
I had relatives. My mother had, siblings, and there were a couple of kids in there. So I had cousins, and I got to hang out with them and do things with them. And we went and took care of my Japanese grandmother. She lived about 10 minutes out the front gate of the Air Force Base I was on. In the second time, when we were in Yokohama, the first time in Zama, it wasn't close enough to be able to do that. And I was probably too young to even recall. But I do have pictures in my scrapbooks and stuff like that where my family was, all there with me, my cousin, my uncles, my aunts, and everything else. When the second time I went back, we were a lot closer to the family because we lived within 10 or 15 miles of them, and we could visit them pretty, very easily. We would go to the front gate in an Air Force bus, walk out the front gate and catch a cab and go to my grandmother's house. And, so I would help sweep and clean and do things. And my grandmother would give me a couple hundred yen, and a couple hundred yen in 1966 and 1967, I could be gone for a day, all I it was about 75 cents, and I could be gone, for a while.
Wow.
But when I starred in the movie, and the movie was, I took my whole fifth grade class to the premiere in downtown Tokyo. The Air Force gave us a big blue bus, and we loaded up all the kids and my teacher and my principal and everything. And we went downtown and had a special seating in the balcony when they premiered the movie. And then they got on the bus and went home, and I had to stay and sign autographs and stuff. But after that, no matter where I went, now all the kids where I used to go to my grandmother's and help and everything, they knew who I was. So, I mean, I couldn't go anywhere without somebody recognizing me. And then I played on the 1969 World Pony League Baseball Championship team, and we would play a bunch of Japanese schools. I was a pitcher and a utility infielder. I played first base mostly. And I remember, warming up the infield, catching the ball, throwing the, and then the next thing I know, there's a Japanese kid standing next to me, and he goes, "Are you Craig?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "It's him," and the whole dugout would empty and start chit chatting. And I'd be autographing bats and gloves, and the umpire's like, "Come on, let's play ball," whatever. So that was always fun, having that. But I mean, growing up there, I just loved it. I've been back a couple of times since then. It's been almost 20 years since I've been back the last time.
Oh, wow.
We're going to go to the Olympics. And then, of course, COVID crashed that.
Yeah.
And then, the plan was to take my mother back. And also, my mom died about a year ago next week. And so we have her ashes. So our plans are to go back to Japan here in the next year and go back to her little town where she grew up and sprinkle her ashes around over there when we go back. But yeah, it was one of those things where you look back on things that I did growing up, and it just wasn't the same. Everything in Japan was just completely different. The people, the society. I mean, you go back there. I mean, my wife and I went back there 20 years ago, and she was blown away that these little 5-year-old kids would get on the train by themselves and they'd go to school, And she was like, "God, there's no way in hell, you could do that in the United States."
No.
And if we were on this bullet train. We went from Tokyo all the way out to Mount Fuji. We stayed at an onsen with my mother and my aunt. And if you lost something, if you left your camera or something on there, it would be there. until the train stopped and somebody
Wow.
and then took it. Nobody would steal it. Nobody would take it. You know, I mean, it was just, the society there is just completely different. I mean, and I think that, you know, it's the purest form of good that I've ever experienced in my entire life. It's just an amazing place. It really is. And growing up there as a kid, it was a fabulous experience. I can't explain to my kids or anything. You know, I got two batches of kids. I got a 40-year-old and a 37-year-old, and now I got a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I remarried young the second time around, and I've got little guys again. And I can't express to them enough how that country is, you know, so different and so amazing. Even my daughter today, I was talking to her, and she said, "I want to go and I want to stay for a long time." And I said, "Well, that's probably stay 10 days, 2 weeks, but we're not going to be staying for a long time."
Yeah.
But it'll still be a lot of fun. I mean, I think they'll really enjoy it. It's an amazing place. It really is.
I think I can speak for Eric and I that is
Absolutely
the dream vacation for both of us. You know, timing and work and family just, I don't think has allotted us to be able to go. But one day, I think it would be safe to say that we'll probably take a family vacation with both of our families at the same time.
You know, the only tough part about going there is, I mean, it's a long ass way.
Yes.
Yeah.
When my wife and I went, we went business class, and I mean, it was incredibly expensive. And the flight, we had to go from Jacksonville. We lived in Jacksonville at the time, so we went from Jacksonville to Atlanta, and then we had a layover, and then we took off from Atlanta. It was 15 and a half hours from Atlanta to Narita, and then coming back, because of the time difference and everything, we actually landed 30 minutes before we took off, because it only took 11 and a half hours to come back because of the tailwind. And so that's a whole nother ball of wax. But I mean, even the plane ride, we rode JAL going over there, and the food, you know, the food on JAL is not like you're going to get on American or Delta. You know, Chicago or something. You know, it's just not going to be the same. It's pretty amazing.
Wow,
and then you know, the only tough part over there is the Japanese. I mean, when I grew up, I mean, they were small people. I mean, if you ever saw the movie Mr. Baseball with Tom Selleck, you know,
absolutely,
big airport, a lot of little people walking around.
Yeah.
And the society is different now. They're bigger. I mean, and you can tell because, I mean, you know, my mom used to tell me the stuff she would eat during the war, and I was like, Jesus, how did you survive? You know, and these kids now, they're bigger than us. You know, they're as big as we are. Look at Otani. You know, I mean, so it's a completely different. You know, their diet's different. Everything's different. So the tough part about going over there is staying somewhere. I mean, you just don't have a Hilton or a Hampton Inn or, you know, a Bonvoy. It's just not cheap, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then the rooms are really small. So, I mean, the only good thing you could possibly do is, I mean, we stayed at the Sanno Hotel, which is a military hotel. I mean, it's still a super fabulous place. And the rooms are really, really inexpensive. It's like $125 to $150 a night. That's just unheard of in Tokyo.
Yeah.
So it's not just the plane ticket that's a killer. It's just finding a place that you can stay for less than $300 or $400 a night. And then, of course, you know, you have to eat the food. And if you're not totally accustomed to eat the food, you know, you're going to have a little bit of a problem there too. But I got to tell you, the best place to go eat is a 7-Eleven. Or an AM or whatever, because in Japan, instead of having hot dogs and taquitos and stuff like that, they have onigiris, you know, pickled, you know, radishes and all kinds of stuff. I mean, Japanese food, you know, and then you get a big 44-ounce big gulp. Japanese food, so it's completely different over there. It's kind of cool. I mean, my wife and I mean, we went to places and ate and everything else like that, but we always found ourselves just going to a 7-Eleven and going, man, this is like perfect. You can't get any better than this, you know? Yeah. And it's like, you know, $10. So
Yeah,
it was awesome.
that's cool. That. So I just want to back up real quick. So you said that you lived next door to a Dai producer, and your dad wanted to take you to audition. How did your dad find out about this, and who knew the producer? Like, how did that?
No, it was the producer lived next door to my uncle, my mother's oldest brother.
Okay.
And they lived, about 10, 15 miles from us in downtown Tokyo. I mean, the base I lived on was at the very edge of the Tokyo, area. It started getting rural just to the west of where I lived. And then when these people contacted my mom, explained what was going on. The producer arranged for the interview. So my dad took me to the interview.
Gotcha.
From the guy that lived next to my uncle is the one that arranged everything.
Okay.
And so we went downtown to Dai's, we went it wasn't Dai's studio because we went the wrong way. We went into town and we went and met these people at a hotel, and that's where we had the interview.
Oh.
Yeah.
Carl, what was it like for a child actor on set in Japan? Specifically, obviously, with the Gamera movie.
Well, I mean, number one, 90% of the people that I worked with on that set didn't speak a lick of English.
Okay.
Yeah,
imagine.
So and my Japanese, I mean, for an 11-year-old kid, my Japanese was great. All right. I mean, I didn't speak like an adult or anything like that, or speak Japanese to the extent we're technically capable in that respect. So there were little spots where, there was a little falling out with the language issues. And Yuasa didn't speak English very well, but I mean, and there was a translator there that kind of helped a little bit, but he didn't speak English that well either. Gotcha. So, but I did fine on the set. I knew what my lines were. I knew what I needed to do. I do recall one time that I had a really tough time with one line in the movie. And after about the third or fourth cut, Yuasa got out of his chair, came over to me with a plastic megaphone and whacked me in the head and said, "Ishokeme," I mean, try harder, And so then, we got the take, and when we got the take, he went, "Cut, it's a wrap," And so we leave the set, But there were times where it was tough trying to try to make do. I mean, the movie started in February, and the Dai studio that we were at was not heated. Okay. So we were burning wood in a 55-gallon drum and, warming your hands. If you watch the movie in the scenes, in the spaceship scenes, there's condensation coming off our breath.
Oh, I'll have to look for that.
It was like 40 degrees, 45 degrees on the set. It was cold. And we literally would come back and warm our hands, around the burning wood. Yeah. Yeah. So we just lost Joe. What happened? Oh,
I think he just stepped out for a second.
Oh, okay. So, but it was okay. We had a couple of situations where there was some communication, fallouts or whatever like that, but we got it figured out. But we were on set for 6 weeks, somewhere around there. And then we went on location for about 5 or 6 days. And then we came back on the set and we shot for another 2 weeks. And that sounds like a lot of time, but it, when you look at like the submarine scenes, the spaceship scenes, there was only one set where the spaceship was.
Oh, okay.
And they changed the lighting and a couple other things that make it look a little bit different. I think one of the coolest things is my original. I don't think I have it with me here right now. I've got so many copies running around. In 2009, I was contacted by a group of people that said they had a pristine, unviewed movie, never been out of the tin.
Oh, wow.
And they were going to digitize it. And they wanted to know if I would do a commentator track on it. And
Cool.
I said, yeah. And they were willing to pay me for it. And, but I just said, I said, look, if you don't want to pay me, how about we sign an agreement that I can burn these DVDs, and when I go to conventions, I can make white tops and I can autograph them and do that. And they were like, oh, okay, because they didn't want to have to pay me anything if they didn't have to. So when I did this movie, it's the 2010 version of Destroy All Planets. I talked from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, and I explained everything that we did in the entire movie.
Cool. That's cool.
And if you watch that with the commentator track off, just watch the movie and then watch it with the commentator track on, all kinds of things kind of fall in place, and it makes a lot of sense.
That's awesome.
And it's actually kind of funny because I mean, there's no CGI. I mean, there's just piano wire and a guy in a rubber suit, man. I mean, this is 1960s stuff, and yeah, it is what it is. And for example, I mean, I have a scar on my right ring finger right here, where when we were doing the submarine scenes, I found a piece of glass and I threw it in the estuary and I took off the end of my finger. I had to go to the emergency room. Yuasa was pissed. He did not. He was not happy with me that day, right? So anyway, I got this Band-Aid on and I got this prophylactic on. It's like skin colored, so it kind of, whatever.
Okay.
But if you watch the movie very carefully, I'll have it on in one scene, and it won't be there the next scene.
Oh, that's so
the next scene, then it won't be there the next scene. Okay. And then and there's a bunch of pictures I have, like my submarine picture. I've got that in my scrapbook, but you can see me with my elbow on the sub, and you can see the Band-Aid on my finger where I cut myself. Then I had a neckerchief slide. I had an American neckerchief slide, and I left it in the hotel room one day. So they had to give me the Japanese copper one. And so if you watch the movie, back and forth, there's a silver one, then there's a copper one, then there's a silver one, a copper one, because we didn't shoot the scenes in sequence.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my John Wayne lassoing capability is all reversed. Yeah. They just put the noose on the hat, pulled it off, and then play the video backwards so the noose goes on the hat. All kind. So you see all those kinds of things, and I talk about that all through the movie. But the other ones are like the submarine scenes. They shot us through a fish tank, right? And we're going along at 20 knots in the water, pretty fast based on what we're doing. Yeah, the camera is swimming through the water. We're moving along, right? Well, the bubbles are going straight up in the video, and there's these fish kind of like swimming around the window like this, right? And we're like going through the water, right? So it's like you pick up on that kind of stuff too. I mean, it's just those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
But and we got invited. Masao and I. Takasuka Toru, my co-star, we both got invited to go to see the shoots where they spun Viras and he freezes and he goes down, he falls in the water and he basically disintegrates. We got kicked off the set because we were laughing. Yuasa kicked us off the set because we were laughing. We thought it was so funny. It was really kind of neat. The things that we did in the movie. And like, for example, one of my other favorite things is the sandwich that I eat.
Yep.
In the scene. If you pay really close attention, a big lump in my mouth because I wouldn't swallow it. It tasted like crap. Whatever it was that I ate was like a cucumber and liverwurst sandwich or something. And I'm talking like this because I had this big lump of it. I wouldn't swallow it. It was terrible. And then the glass they gave us to drink out of, it had this lip on it that looked like the Grand Canyon, so you're trying to sip it. It's like coming out of your mouth over here. And, it was really something, but,
I got to ask, Eric, I'm sorry. I know you have a question. Yeah. Whatever happened to that DVD commentary that you did?
Oh, I've got it. I'm bringing 50 to the convention.
Oh, very cool.
So I will take care of you guys, so you can watch it with the commentator track and get all the direct input as you're watching it. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, that's one of the more popular things that I autograph and sell at the cons. That's like the original version. This one.
Yep. Okay.
Right. My favorite thing that I talk about is if you look at my name, I'll write it so you can see it.
Okay.
So this is my name in Japanese.
Okay.
It's Haru Kureigu. Okay. My name, when the Sandy Frank version was dubbed, came out as Curl, Kurl, Crane, Crane. Okay. And if you look at it, that's what it says on the box. It says Curl Crane.
Wow.
In 99, I got my first cable modem, my first Pentium 2 processor. I went on a search in I went first search, Gamera, and so I got this guy's website and he had all 5 of the first Showa movies. And then on the 5th one, it says, and Curl Crane stars as Jim Morgan, in Gamera versus Viras or, whatever. So I click on the guy's link and I write him an email. I go, hey, my name's really Carl Craig. It's not Curl Crane, He writes me back, goes, hey, thanks, appreciate it, man. Whatever, So I go over and scan my scrapbook. Jeez. These are black and white pictures. I have a whole book of them. They assigned a photographer to me, and everywhere I went, they took pictures on set, on location, and everything. And so I scanned a couple of these pictures, and I sent them to this guy, and he goes, holy shit, where did you get these? I've never seen these before. And I said, I told you, my name's Carl Craig, and I was Jim Morgan in Gamera versus Virus. And he goes, holy crap, you really are the guy. And I go, why would I make something like that up? Right? Come on, He goes, holy shit, we've been looking for Curl Crane for 20 years, man. No wonder we haven't been able to find you, And so, right away, I was going to cons. When they finally figured out who I was, I was going to cons. And that was, that's 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So in 2000, so I started popping up in cons all over the place because they were like, holy crap, we found the guy from Destroy All Planets,
Yeah. Wow.
So that was that was kind of an eye-opening experience. And then I went to the G-Fest where Yuasa was there. Okay. And I got a limo pick me up, take me to the airport. I had a limo pick me up at the airport, take me to the hotel. We had a delayed flight. I got in there at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I go into my hotel room. I turn the lights on. It's like a 3,000 square foot, palatial guest of honor room.
Yeah.
And I had one, and Yuasa and his wife had one. So one of the nights I was there, I invited a bunch of people. I said, let's come up and order pizza in my room. And everybody comes into my room and they walk in and go, whoa. And I go, what? Your room's not like this? And then, but it was crazy because I was doing like 5 or 10 cons a year, right away. It was just like one a month, it felt like. Wow. And it was great, because I got to go out there and, see people and meet people, and they were like, holy crap, it's really you, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
But it's kind of died down over the years. And like I told you about before we came on, my relationship, it's kind of, flattened out a little bit. But so every now and then, I'm really excited to come back to G-Fest. This will be my 6th trip back to G-Fest. So,
wow.
Yeah. And that's like the, I guess that's the perfect storm where the Rubber Suit Monster guy, that's the kind of convention I need to go to.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I go to these other things, and I've been to a bunch of conventions where people come up to me and go, who are you? What who are you, man? So I'm like, man, I don't want to have to sit here and explain all this because
Yeah.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, you know. But,
so with all your memories that you have told us, whether just absolutely amazing, from funny to serious, like what is the one that you take away from your experience doing that film? Like, is it with, you know, your co-star that you guys did something funny, you know, together, or was it the director saying something? Like, what is that one fond memory that you're like, you always go to it?
The ray guns that
Wow.
this is an actual prop. It's actually signed right here by Hongo Kojiro
Oh
and
yeah.
Yuasa. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
I got it. Let me see if I can find the picture. It's in my scrapbook here. So these guys were like, they bought all these things and they were trying to figure out how to, you know, make them fit into the movie.
Yeah.
So they actually got, some of the, oh God, I don't know if I have it in here. I got to figure out where that picture is. But they took these things and they painted them brown and they stuck an Asahi beer can on the end.
Oh, really?
And they put some reflective tape on it, and they used that as the ray guns that were trying to hold Viras in his cage. So there's I have a couple promotional shots and stuff that I have. Okay. I think the one that I'm looking for, I actually, oh, here it is. It's kind of too close to the camera. You see the ray gun?
Yeah, they're
right over here.
Oh, yes, yes.
So cool. There were two left over. So Masao and I got one each, and this thing has like a little red thing in here. If you pull this trigger, it actually throws these red sparks in here. Yeah. And on the end, there's a little, this thing right here. It allowed you to wind this little propeller up, and you could shoot it off the end.
Oh.
So we were like playing with these on the set. And when I came home, my dad said, Hongo Kojiro signed it and Yuasa signed it. My dad said, you need to put that away because it's going to mean something someday. And then I also have this.
Oh, wow.
Camera, yes.
This is number 2.
Okay.
Because the first one, me jumping around in the sand in the fight scenes and everything, I couldn't push the button down because it got sand in the camera. So when I went on the submarine and I couldn't push the button, they said, Yuasa said, what's wrong? And I said, what do you mean what's wrong? And I tried to show them that the camera wouldn't work anymore. So they went and got me another one. So I used the one that was broken in all the filming scenes because it was broken and it just needed to hang around my neck. And then I used this one in all the submarine scenes and elsewhere where I got to, push the button down. This thing came out in 1967, about a year before the movie. And, people didn't know that you had to shoot the picture, pull it out, tear it off, shake it around. It was, the first Polaroid.
Yeah.
So, you got away with some of the stuff in the movie because of that. But, I have these 2 props, and every convention I go to, I let people take selfies with me holding my props.
Oh, that's
So, the people really get a big kick out of that too.
So. Did you take anything else from set?
No. If I would have thought about it, and if I had known I was 11 years old that, hey, this might be pretty cool to have later on, I probably would have, but no, I didn't. I didn't take anything. So.
Totally random question, but I do see you have a little Gamera on your shelf back there, which is really cool.
Oh yeah.
You're representing. Is that a silver Ghidorah too?
Yeah, it's a guy. Somebody got me that when I retired from customs. Everybody kind of knew that I was a movie star.
Oh, okay.
They got this thing. I worked for the president. I worked for George Bush. So they put Air Force One in his mouth.
Oh my goodness!
You worked for George Bush?
I've got a bunch of creatures and critters.
Wow! What?
Yeah, I've got all kinds. I've got all kinds of variations. Here you go.
What?
See, I've got this virus.
Yes.
Yeah, I got some good ones.
Wait, so I have to ask, what'd you do for the president? I mean, like, I know we don't talk politics, which is totally fine, but like, you can't tell me you worked for the president and me not to be interested. That's amazing.
Well, I mean, I was an Air Force pilot.
Oh, okay.
I spent 20 years in the Air Force. I mean, I wanted to be an Air Force pilot since I was little, astronaut, pilot, whatever, and that was like my, that's what I wanted to do. And I went in the Air Force, and I was a pilot. I was in the Air Force for about 8 years, and I got an F-16 to Misawa, Japan. And I was all excited because I was going to, take my oldest son, my ex-wife, to Japan. And then they changed my assignment and sent me to Korea without my family. Back in the F-4, I flew the F-4 Phantom, and I quit. I said, I'm out. I'm getting out. So I got out, and I got hired by all the airlines, but I didn't want to really do that. Plus, the pay sucked. I was making like $45,000 as a captain in 1985. And Delta and American and everybody offered me $19,000 to go be a 727 engineer. And I was like,
oh, wow,
I can't do this,
Yeah.
And so the U.S. Customs Service, I was hired, and I have my retired shield.
Oh, wow.
So this is a 1789 badge. It's the oldest law enforcement agency in the land. This guy calls me up and says, hey, I'm the chief pilot for the U.S. Customs Service. We need guys that have fighter interceptor radar experience because we chase dope smugglers. And, we'd hire you as a GS-13 on law enforcement pay starting at $65,000. So I went, $65,000? $19,000. I think I'll take this job. So I went to work for the Customs Service. And shortly thereafter, I was the deputy special operations chief. We did all kinds of covert and undercover and OCONUS missions out of country and everything else. And I took this guy named Arthur Houghton, who had married into the Corning glass family, Corningware. I took him out to dinner one night, and then I flew him around. And in a conversation, he said, you know what? You need to work for the president. Would you be interested in working for the president? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, In 2 weeks, I get this phone call that says, come to Washington. There's a job in Washington for you. So I came to Washington, and I worked for George Herbert Walker Bush. I got his signature. I got his signed picture over here from him. I got my Dan Quayle picture, too. When we had the potato incident, potato, whatever.
Yeah.
But, it was kind of cool in that respect. I went back to the field. I worked in the field office in San Diego. And then when I came back to headquarters, I ended up working for Secretary Ridge when they created Homeland Security. And that's where I met my current wife. She was part of the team that helped create Homeland Security. And so I was on Secretary Ridge's staff as an advisor on his staff. So I had like 10 years of experience in headquarters. My greatest law enforcement claim to fame is I helped capture the Beltway sniper back in 2002. 2000.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was, did that too. That was, I was getting a haircut, and he kills this guy down the street from where I'm at. And then I was in the gas station on a Tuesday night, and they killed somebody in that same gas station the next night. And then they shot somebody at the mall where my son worked at Chick-fil-A. And I said, okay, that's enough of that shit. So I went into my house and said, I'm putting a strike force together. And we put 3 helicopters on the ground at Dulles with, 7 by, 24-hour, 3 shifts at 8 hours a shift, 7 by 24. And then we were, in the air all the time, and we were on the ground when they figured out who he was. I've got a presentation on my other computer that I would give to all kinds of people about those 2 guys and how it started and everything else. And it's pretty interesting. Frankly, it's kind of scary. But, so I had my 20-year Air Force career, and I had my 20-year law enforcement career. So I did 40 years for the uncle.
Well, I mean, you just
out of that, I was in the business development world, where I was a director of sales for Augusta Westland Helicopter. I was vice president for Cessna Aircraft. So I built airplanes and sold airplanes. Top up there, all my airplanes.
Oh wow.
Wow.
So I mean, I was in the aviation world. I did 9 I can sit still again. There we go. No, don't do this. Oh, let's see. I'll get it in a second.
There we go.
But anyway, building airplanes that shot bombs, dropped bombs, shot missiles and stuff like that, and helicopters that you could fast rope out of and do all kinds of stuff. That's kind of what I did for another 15 or 20 years after I finished my federal careers. And, so I was always around burning jet fuel one way or the other.
Yeah.
The one cool story was when we came back from Japan in 1969, we left right after the moon landing, and we were looking for a house. My dad retired, and so I started school about 2 weeks late, but we got one of those 2 a.m. Sunday phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
Usually not good. And it was my aunt, my dad's sister, calling him going, "Turn on the television. Carl's on the television." So we get up and we run into the dining room and the family room, we turn the TV on, and there's Destroy All Planets. Playing, but it's like this. Look, there's a spaceship in the sky. In Japanese, and there's the English dubbing in there and the whole thing. And so my dad calls the station the next day and says, "Hey, can we get a copy of that movie?" And they're going, "What the hell are you talking about? That's a 35 millimeter film. It's just making its circuit around all the stations." So flash forward, I'm flying for the customs service down in Miami, chasing dope smugglers. And my boss comes in and says, "Hey, can you still speak the lingo?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I got this Japanese film crew that's coming, and I need you to make sure they don't step into a tail rotor or a propeller."
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for him, and the crew comes into the ready room, and the first guy through the door goes, "Carl Gregson." He recognizes me.
No way.
He's my age, and he recognizes me from the movie. And he's going, "Hey, this guy's a movie star." And everybody's going like, "What? What the hell are you talking about?" So after the 2 weeks or so they were there, the producer comes over and says, "Hey, we're going back to Japan. Thanks for everything. Hey, what can I do for you?" And I said, "Hey, if you happen to find a copy of my movie, send it back to me." So about 2 weeks later, I get a DHL package in the mail. It's a VHS tape of the original movie in Japanese.
Wow.
And the price tag on the box is 14,700 yen, which is about $150 at the time.
Whoa.
So I got no royalties for my role in the movie. Wow. And that was another thing that when Yuasa and I got to see each other in 2003, he looked at me and said, "Onegaishimasu," because I thank you. And I was like, "For what?" And he goes, "Royalties." He got a lot of royalties.
Yeah. Oh. Wow, Carl, you've had an incredibly interesting career after the movie.
Real.
I mean, honestly, I would love to pick your brain for another 2 hours on just your work in the government and planes and all that. But I got to ask, what did your family and friends think when you told them that you were an actor at one point in your life? Were they impressed, or were they kind of like, whatever, Carl?
My family, my cousins and everybody, I mean, we're all, much older now, and everybody still knows and remembers. And I mean, when Tim Beam and everything throws everything on Facebook and says, "I'm going to whatever," all my cousins get on there and go, "Hey, cuz, that looks great. How you done?" Whatever, And so I was at the pool the other night. My daughters swim for our local swim team. And the guy that does the PA announcements and calls out he's an attorney, and he's a big Gamera fan, and he plays the Gamera music, down at the pool all the time. Gamera, Gamera, and I'm going like, "Oh, God."
That's awesome.
But so, and then, my older kids, they kind of took it in stride a little bit better. They're boys. Okay. As a matter of fact, when I showed them the movie, when I popped my head over the wall in the very beginning of the movie, my youngest son looks at my older son and goes, "Mike, what are you doing in the movie?" because he looked just like me, and everything. So yeah, it was kind of funny. And then of course, my daughters, I remember Emily took a picture. My wife took a picture. This guy had a Maryland Terrapin sticker on his car. And Evie was about maybe 5 at the time. She's 15 now. She said, "Look, Mom, Gamera. There's a Gamera on that guy's car." Because the picture of this turtle, the Maryland Terrapin, looks like Gamera.
Yeah.
So they know about Gamera too. When people come over to the house, everybody goes, "Well, yeah." So I have to show them all my crap.
I love that.
They like it. It's always fun. So, but I mean, when I go to the convention, I'll have like 10 people standing around me every 10 minutes. And I'm going over the story. I tell the story 100 times. While I'm there. It's the same story over and over again. That's why I go, just buy the video. Just buy, you can watch it and you can learn everything. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so awesome. Well, one of our last questions for you, because we are coming up on that hour mark and we want to be respectful for your time since we did get a late start to this because of the technical difficulties. But I have seen lately that you've been teasing a couple new movies coming out here. Is there any details you could tell us about anything?
Well, we're not sworn to secrecy or anything.
Okay.
But and it's going to be Linda and I.
Ooh. Yes.
So,
can I guess?
What's that?
No, I'm just kidding. I was like, I just think that's amazing. That's great.
Well, I mean, the idea of Fire Island, the kaiju movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea is Linda and I, Linda was she in the Navy or the Coast Guard or whatever she was in her movie, and King Kong Escapes, right?
Yep.
There's no inclination to me becoming a pilot in the Gamera movie, whatever. But the storyline is I'm going to be a 4-star Air Force general, and she's going to be like a 4-star Navy admiral.
Oh, that's cool.
Cameo, roles in the movie because these monsters are coming to, and so we're going to have these parts in that. We were supposed to start filming this year. It's been delayed. So, we're just waiting for that. And then there's another film. It's a local film group here in Virginia. They do a bunch of different kinds of stories, but they're primarily along the lines of law enforcement, mystery kind of things. And I'm going to be Linda's. I'm an ex-Secret Service agent. I'm going to be her bodyguard, and she's going to be like one of the. Once again, I have to take a subservient role because I've only been in one movie and she's been in 2, and a TV episode for My 3 Sons. So she has a lot more experience than me. So she gets to be the star, and I'm going to be a bodyguard. So we're going to be shooting in my house in September. We're going to do a couple scenes here, and then we're going to go out and do some on location set shoots. I don't know when the movie's going to come out. Don't know much more details about that because I have a very limited role. I'm not even sure if I speak unless I say duck or something like that, when somebody's supposed to do that. But that's going to be kind of interesting. And the only thing that's kind of funny about it is, you can actually put like an IMDb page and say, "Hey, I've been in 3 movies now." So not just one. And then Linda's going to be able to say, "I've been in 4 movies." So we're kind of fun, having a good time about it. We think it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So because she just came up a couple weekends ago on Friday and spent the night, and then we got up next morning and we went over and met the film people, and then she came back to the house and went back to Richmond. So, and then we've been kind of finalizing the dates and stuff like that for that right now. So yeah, it's not anything to get totally crazy about because there's just no reason for an old fart like me and her, to start doing something like we're 25 again, or kids. So yeah, it's nothing like that, but it still should be fun. I mean, there'll be some things in there that I'm sure that we'll get harassed about and everything else. So it is what it is.
That's kind of the beauty of it, because you and Linda are like stars that people want to see, and I've always wanted to see in another movie and never really got the chance or the opportunity to do it. So, it might be small or whatever, but at least you can say you're in, like you said, you're in another movie, and fans like us of the genre can, still enjoy your guys' presence around in another movie, even though, you've been in another one earlier on in your life and stuff. So it's still really fun to see that you guys are still willing to do that and having fun with it. And now, coincidentally, with how you and Linda's lives have synced up so similar and so crazy, that now you're going to be starring in a movie together, not one but two movies, is
We have a lot of fun with that. One of the coolest shows, we did Monster Palooza in Pittsburgh. God, I guess it's been about 4 years ago now. It was right before COVID. We showed up on like Thursday night. We drove up there. So she drove up, spent the night. We got up the next morning, packed all our stuff, and then drove over there.
Yeah.
And we took our time, because I hate driving on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And then, we got there and we're trying to set up our tables and stuff. And I'm on the left side. Linda's over here on my right. And then I look over to my left, and this guy, whoever's next to me, he's got this amazingly elaborate setup. And I'm like, holy Moses. And this guy's got movies galore, but now they're all covered up in everything. I don't know who the guy is.
Yeah.
So the next morning, I come downstairs and I'm looking for this picture. And we come downstairs and you can't make it out because the camera's too hard. That's Patrick Wayne, John Wayne's son.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was the guy next to me, right?
Wow.
And so I ate breakfast with him, hung out with him, went to dinner with him, drank and smoked cigars with him for like 3 days. I mean, this guy he's amazing, right? And so, he goes like, now how many movies were you in? I was like, he goes, really? And I go, yeah. I said, how many movies were you in? He goes, 42. And I was like, wow, And I said, well, I know your dad got you into it. And he goes, yeah, man, he grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and made me do it. And then after a while, I was really enjoying it. I liked it,
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, well, what's your favorite movie? And he goes, Sinbad. I was like, Sinbad? Are you serious, man? I mean, you were in all these classic movies with your dad, And he goes, yeah, Sinbad. I was like, why? And he goes, Jane Seymour. I went, oh, and he goes, Jane Seymour. I was like, oh, whoa, kind of thing.
Whoa.
So yeah, I mean, he's running his dad's cancer, institute thing. He gave me his card, and it's got this beautiful embossed thing with John Wayne's, silhouette on it and everything. And he is just such an incredible guy. So you get to meet some really cool people. I met, what's her name? She just died recently. She was in the movie Brubaker. And then I've met other movie stars, at other conventions that Linda and I got invited to this one in Richmond on like 3-day notice. Can you go to Richmond and do this show? And Linda says, I live in Richmond. And I said, well, I live like 2 hours away. And perfect. So they got us a hotel room. They got us a table. We come smoking down there, and they got our tables all set up with our backdrops and our, our big old portraits and everything around.
Yeah.
And what's cool is they had all this tape on the floor to line you up like serpentine to get you set up to come to the table for your autographs and everything. And we're looking over our tables going like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool, And nobody ever got in line like that. There was no line waiting to get autographs from. But Brett Spiner is like 3 tables down, right? Data from Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
He comes over, hey, shake hands, and he goes, so he's looking at our banners and stuff. And he goes like that. So who are you guys? What we? So we're like, oh God, And then I go into the green room. I get a couple pieces of pizza and a salad, and I'm sitting there and I'm eating, and I look up, and Ralph Macchio and half the damn cast of Cobra Kai is at my table.
Oh wow!
So I take my camera, my phone out, and I'm acting like I'm texting and I'm going taking pictures. So I send it back to my wife. My wife goes, "Holy crap, that's Ralph Macchio." I said, "Yeah, the whole Cobra Kai, cast is here. This thing,
yeah.
Holy mackerel, So you meet all these cool people there too, doing that kind of stuff, and they're going like, "Now who are you? What movie are you in?" It's like always like that's what we get,
Yeah.
So, it's okay.
It'll definitely change though at G-Fest.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
G-Fest,
that's
for
G-Fest.
you.
Everybody knows who I am, and everybody knows who Linda is, whatever.
Yep.
Linda just went a couple of years ago, so it's a whole different ball of wax. I mean, you don't have to sit there and explain to anybody who you are, or what the movie was about, or any of that kind, because everybody knows, and that's the beauty of going to that convention. It's a great convention. So
yeah. Absolutely.
I just have to be careful when I go up there because I can't drink Jay Johnson's Godzilla blood. Can't do that. Have you had the Godzilla blood yet?
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So, you know Jay pretty well.
Are you
Jay Johnson?
Are you thinking
Maybe
of?
in passing.
I don't know if I know Jay. I thought I know like Greg and. Are you talking about Mike Johnson?
No, Jay Johnson. His dad is one of the original Swampers that recorded in Muscle Shoals. He did backup music for everybody that you could ever dream about. Okay, Jay is a musician in his own right, and his son Jimmy is an incredible musician too, and he's a singer. I was at this convention, one of the very first conventions I ever went to, and Jay comes up to me, shakes my hand, and says, "Man, I've always wanted to meet you. Here's a CD of my band, And so I go, "Oh, okay, thanks, So like I'm driving around New Jersey for 2 days, and I finally pull this CD out and I stick it in my car, and I'm going, "Holy shit, these guys are really good." It was Molly Hatchet. He was, he's been in all these big bands, Blackfoot,
Wow.
The drummer from Blackfoot, he died. Jackson Spires, he died. Dave Hubelek from Molly Hatchet, he died. But these are all these guys that Jay played with in the bands,
Oh.
And I was like, holy mackerel, this guy's like, he still does. He goes over to Europe and plays in concerts all the time. So he'll be in the vendor room selling DVDs and other stuff, but he always comes, and he's the guy that makes the Godzilla blood.
Gotcha.
Like convention famous. If you haven't heard about Godzilla blood, then you know.
Yeah, I've heard of it, and I think I've heard of the person, but never met him. And
he is. So, you need to meet him, and you talk about another guy that you could have a really great time with, in an opportunity for an interview. He's another guy. I mean,
right on.
He's amazing, and he's like a brother, man. I really enjoy an opportunity to come there, and he's like super psyched that I'm coming this year because he comes every year, and he's been like his 30th in a row, I think. I don't know, but I come about every 3 or 5 years, and then we get together and hang out. But so it'll still be a lot of fun.
It will be.
Yeah.
Well, to say hi.
But yeah, absolutely. We'll try to see him. But yeah, I mean, we have gone over that hour mark, so we don't want to keep you. I know you're a busy guy, but thank you for chatting with us. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Before we say our goodbyes, Joe, do you want to say any last parting messages to Craig before we get out of here?
Carl, it was a pleasure. It was an honor. Thank you so much for jumping on this interview with us. And I just want to say that I'm very excited to meet you in person at G-Fest. It's going to be a blast. Hopefully we can have a cigar or a drink or something. It should be fun.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The logistics are always fun for this thing. I mailed a whole ton of crap to Tim.
Oh, nice.
So, and then I got to bring 2 suitcases because I got to bring the props. You know, I dread doing this every year. I got to like wrap them in bubble wrap.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you watch how your suitcases get just chucked around on the airplanes and everything. I'm just waiting for one of these things to get broken. Thankfully, they're plastic. You know, I can probably glue it back together with super glue if anything happens. And then I got to bring my photo album and a couple other things. But other than that, you know, I'll be ready to rock and roll when we get there.
It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, so hopefully all that stuff arrives safely and you'll be ready to go at the fest. But yeah, thank you, Carl. It's been an absolute honor and privilege. Yeah, everybody, check if you're going to G-Fest, check out Carl. He will be there signing autographs in the autograph room with Japan legends. Obviously, you've seen him. Talking to him for about an hour. Great guy, great stories, man. I mean, and obviously he said he's always up to telling more stories. He's bringing props, so it's going to be a great experience for anybody to go see Carl at G-Fest this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you, Carl. We really do appreciate your time, your stories, everything. It's been a lot of fun, and you know, who knows? We would love to have you on here again. Like Joe said, pick your brain about, you know, your other jobs, the avenues that you went down. I mean, that would be absolutely fun and crazy to go down with.
I can set up something where I can, you know, share parts of presentations and stuff and show you.
That would be cool. Yeah,
we can do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you bring your cameras, we can still do something live up there too. You know, so
okay.
Absolutely, we will definitely do that. So yeah, everybody. See you all at G-Fest. We will be there. The Monsters with Attitude crew will be there along with Carl Craig. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's great to have you back, Carl. Like we said off air, it's been some years, you know, since you've been, but it's really great to see you back and have that opportunity to meet you in person. Honestly, that, like I said, wasn't able to do back then, but now I'm really excited.
Well, I don't think I'd be able to get there without your guys' help. So, you know, that's the other thing. I mean, I've been there on my own. I've paid my way before, so just so I could be there, because I wanted to be there. And and I did another one with another guy that was, you know, he's a really dear friend of mine. He passed away years ago. He was one of the toy vendors, and he would bring me there and put me at his table, and I would autograph everything that people bought from him. And I did autographs there too. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, I just enjoy going there and hanging out with the people that, you know, that run in my circles. So, I mean, even though it's all years later, you don't get a chance to meet a whole bunch of kids that are into this. You know, it's people my age. You know, it's kind of squirrely after a while because there's hardly any kids that come up to you. I've had a couple over the years. I've got this one kid that follows me. I don't care where I go, California, Denver, Florida. He shows up and comes over and, you know, hangs out with me and takes pictures with me. So we'll just have to see how that plays out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's honestly, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure.
Let's get together and go get a deep dish pizza one night or something.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely.
Okay. I want to talk to you about George Bush, and I want to talk to you about Homeland Security. Oh my gosh. That piques my interest probably even more than Godzilla and Gamera and all that.
Yeah. Well, I gotta tell you, I got a million good stories about that too. Some are scary, some are funny. You know, it is what it is too, man. When you work for the uncle for 40 years, you're bound to see some strange shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I've all the years that I've flown, I've got out of the plane and kissed the ground a few times too. So, wow, you know, it's that way too.
But we will say our goodbye. So thank you, Carl. Thank you everybody for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor. Thank you all for watching live, and if you watch it later, obviously we hope you enjoy this interview, and hopefully we see everybody at G-Fest. So with that, hope everybody has a good night, and of course from MWA to you, embrace the attitude. Have a good night.
See you guys.
Everybody.